minutes or so. And thank you very much for sponsoring this type of event. So Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, as was just mentioned, we just moved into a new facility in 2009 at the Landmark at Eastview campus. We are a biopharmaceutical company, if you don't know who we are. So we discover, develop, and we commercialize medicines for some serious medical conditions out there. As I always like to tell people, it doesn't get much better than that when you start thinking about corporate goals. We do have 3 locations, one of which being in Tarrytown, New York, which is our research and development and corporate headquarters, and that's really the space I'm going to focus on today. It is at the Landmark at Eastview, and for those of you who may not know the building, it's between 9A and the Sawmill Parkway. It used to be the old Union Carbide complex, and it's in both the towns of Mount Pleasant and the town of Greenburgh, which always is kind of fun. When we first moved there, we were only on the Mount Pleasant side, so we just figured it was a match made in Valhalla between us and the Landmark and Eastview. So we did move there in 1989, and at that time we were about the size of a postage stamp, and as Neil mentioned, we're well over 500,000 square feet today. So we've been expanding quite a bit over the past 21 years. We have a mixture of laboratory and office space, and laboratory space is very interesting to deal with because it has a lot of energy requirements and tends to be an energy hog. So any efficiencies that we can gain there can really reap some good rewards for us. We have had various landlords during our tenure. Our current landlord is Biomed Realty Trust. I think they've been around for about 5 years, and there are some representatives from them back in the corner, so I promised I wouldn't heckle them if they didn't heckle me. As we've continued to grow, we actually created a patchwork quilt, and we were distributed throughout the campus. When Biomed Realty Trust came on board, they decided they were going to follow a master site plan that had been put through with the previous owner, and they and Regeneron worked together in order to come up with a great plan, but it consolidated us onto the south side of the campus. So we now say we are a match made in the unincorporated area of the town of Greenburgh. Not quite the same ring to it, but it works for us. We really had a true partnership as we were doing this project. And since this focus for this day is really on the landlord-tenant relationship, how can you go green when you may have supposedly opposing forces? They aren't opposing. We should have a partnership, and this worked really, really well for us. We were able to incorporate many green and sustainable concepts in both the core and shell, or actually just the shell, which the landlord had built for us, and then Regeneron actually did the core and all of the tenant improvements, the complete interior. What we did is we developed what we called a green sheet. So even at our ribbon cutting, we were able to give something out, and I know you can't read it, you're not supposed to be able to, but you can see how many line items there are there. This is something that we gave. We were so proud that we were able to incorporate so many sustainable concepts in this building that we thought it important enough when everybody came to Regeneron and when visitors come, we give them this green sheet. That's how important we think it is, and it's a fabulous PR tool. It goes through a lot of the things that we've been able to do, everything from efficient HVAC systems with heat recovery to great lighting projects, a lot of other sustainable materials that we use throughout the space, and various structural things that certainly Biomed Realty was also involved in. I added this picture, although it may be difficult to see. There is actually a courtyard in the center of the building. And I think this is important to talk about because originally the landlord had planned this as a parking lot, which didn't hold well with me because I wanted some green space. And we really thought it would increase the quality of life as well as be a much better green alternative for the campus. But the landlord had it as a parking lot, and the master site plan had it as a parking lot, and my executive management didn't want to pay for putting in a beautiful courtyard. So I was in the middle, and I was working with both the landlord side and our executive management, and all the great minds did end up coming together at the end, and as you can see, we ended up with a beautiful courtyard. There is some parking surrounding it, but we even tried to go green there. We have pervious pavers there for some of the parking spaces. So we really felt as though we had a true win-win on this one. And without the landlord working together with us, we never would have been there. We are committed to the future to continue green processes, and that's both on the Biomed side as well as on the Regeneron side. So additional initiatives that we're undertaking in some of our older spaces are doing some lighting retrofits. The landlord has also done this in some of the common areas. various HVAC upgrades being undertaken by both parties. All kinds of things that we're doing, even to simple things like promoting Earth Day, which, there's things that you can do that don't cost much, but can have a tremendous effect from a marketing and PR standpoint. So Regeneron and BMR, we have this terrific relationship. We thought it was very successful. We fostered a full collaborative environment, total open communication throughout the entire process, both on the design of the shells and on the design of all of the tenant improvements. We all participated in the project meetings on both sides, made a lot of decisions early on in the process about what we wanted to do. Did we want to do LEED or not? Did we want to go after incentives? Jason had all of the acronyms and things up there, and a lot of those folks can provide incentives for doing some of these sustainable measures. They're out there. You got to go for them because they're there for the taking as long as you can prove that there's some meat to the project. And then we had to gain approval from the landlord on all of our design details. And sure, there might have been times when both parties didn't agree readily, but we were able to get everything put together, and then at the end of the day, we shared in the limelight in the PR, because both sides are very, very proud of the fact that we were able to instill all of these green processes and green materials and things in these buildings. And of course, I certainly enjoy the lower utility bills, which is really important, because when I compare our older buildings with these two new buildings, we just moved in last August and September, so I don't even have a full year's worth of data. But we're running about 18–19% lower on our utility bills. With laboratories being energy hogs, to me that translates into just under $1 million a year of energy savings. So being able to design and build these things into the buildings have really resulted in not only better buildings, but real cost savings at the end of the day. So tenant-landlord sustainability relationships are kind of outside of just the relationship that Regeneron and BMR had. There are so many things we can do. We can communicate, we can collaborate. We all need to be the good guys in this, and we are all the good guys in this. We just need to open up our eyes and work together to get some of these things done. You can add language to your lease concerning green initiatives, and be really creative about some incentives that you can go for, different opportunities there. And fight for what you think is right on both sides. The courtyard was a great example for that. We really thought it was the right thing to do, and it's really turned out to be a fabulous addition to the campus. Other things is to really gain inertia and instill excitement with all of your tenants. They can be the worst thorn in your side, or they can be your strongest ally. And even though we as corporations, whether it be the tenant or the landlord, want to do some of these green practices, your employees really want it, and they'll bring it out to you in some of the oddest ways, both good and bad, but they truly think it's important. And if you get them behind you, and then the companies are standing behind the employees, it really is a terrific synergy there. And we can certainly learn from each other. But make sure that you hold each other responsible. If you say you're going to recycle, make sure the janitorial staff is really doing the recycling. If the tenant says they're going to install lighting retrofits that are going to cut down on energy use, make sure that they're really doing that. We both need to be watchdogs for each other a bit. So again, another picture of the courtyard. Of course, this was taken right when we first moved in, so the plants are very small. They do happen to be growing. But final point is, we can all do this. We all need to be the good guys. There are so many ways to achieve this. And I think a great story is the Regeneron-BMR partnership, because it really worked. And I think it can work for many of you out there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joanne. It's great to hear you talk about the relationship as a partnership. I like that approach. Our next speaker will be